Okay, Sensei. You gotta check the TV. How's the TV look? Are you done in here, Karen? Are you okay in here?
Yes, I am.
It's shooting the camera this way. So. Yeah, we can do that later. Morning, Claire.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our special Gotan-e Fujimatsuri service. Today, we are celebrating the birth of our founder, Shinran Shonin. We have the statue back there, we got the picture behind me, but we got to do some math. Okay, ready for math? Yeah! What's 2023 minus 1,173? You got your calculator? Fortunately, I have a calculator on my computer. I already did the math. 850. 850. Yeah, you were close, huh? Maybe you had the exact, I don't know. So, this is why. Shinran was born in 1173, and it's 2023, so this is the 850th anniversary of his birth. Wow. Yeah, see, that's why Reverend Endo's not here. Our organist, Steve Terasaki's not here, because they're still in Japan. They went to Japan, 850-year celebration, really special. So they went to Japan, and they're still there. But we can have our own special service here in Oakland. All right. And guess what? Shinran's actual birth date, May 21st. Today. Today's the actual day. 850 years ago, today, Shinran Shonin was born. So we have a special service. We have the Naijins all set up special. I did Oshoko in front of our Shinran portrait. We have a guest speaker. So let's go, all right? Now, Shinran was special because he found the Nembutsu teaching where he could be himself, embraced and uplifted by the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha. So let's do our Nembutsu recitation. Okay, so I'm going to say Namo Amida Butsu one time, and then we say it all together 5 times. Okay? Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo Amida. Okay, thank you very much. Next, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. Our guest speaker will speak again later to the adults, but for Dharma School, our guest is Dr. Scott Mitchell. He's a scholar, he's an author, he's a podcaster, he's even a drummer. Yeah, I saw him last night. But he's going to talk to us, and so I'm going to share the screen, so watch the screen, and there he is. There's our guest speaker, and welcome.
Well, good morning, everybody. So good to be here. I'm really very happy to be able to share Shinran's birthday with everybody. I'm a little embarrassed, even though I'm a scholar. I didn't realize his birthday was May 21st. That would have changed everything I was going to say today. But it is Shinran's birthday, so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. It's Shinran's birthday. Oh, no, wait. This is actually a picture of my cat, Bailey, and I'm mostly showing my cat, Bailey, because Bailey and Reverend Harry are really good friends. And I mostly just wanted to give Harry the chance to see his friend.
Bailey.
But if you go to the next slide is actually a picture of Shinran. Reverend Harry mentioned a statue we have outside here of the Hondo. This is a statue of Shinran that's in Kyoto, I believe. And like Harry mentioned, and I'm sorry, I'm going to keep calling him Harry because I've known Harry longer than he's been a reverend, so it's hard for me to call him sensei. But as Reverend Harry said, Shinran was born 850 years ago, and he discovered or he learned about a particular kind of Buddhism that allows us to be ourselves. That is, if we know who we are and we're really honest about that. And part of the path that he discovered is what's called Jodo Shinshu, which is a Pure Land school of Buddhism. And the main Buddha that we see on the altar here is Amida. And if you go to the next slide, there's another image of Amida. This is also an image of a statue that's in Kyoto. And this is one of my favorite images of Amida Buddha, because if you see what Amida's doing, he's actually turning around. He's looking behind him. And the story of the statue is that it's from this moment where Amida is leading people to enlightenment. He wants everybody to become enlightened, and he's turning around to make sure that nobody is left behind. So this statue is a representation of Amida saying, everybody come. Everybody comes to the Pure Land. Everybody gets to become enlightened. No matter what, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, whether or not you're a great enlightened monk or just an ordinary person. And this is a very important message that Shinran discovered, because when he was young, he went to a monastery and he tried really hard to be a really good monk. And he studied all the time, and he read a lot, and he practiced, and he chanted, and he meditated, and he did all of these things. And guess what happened? He was really bad at it. He did not do very well. And he discovered that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't really get very far. And so he left the monastery and he met his teacher Honen, and Honen taught him about Amida Buddha, and he realized that there's another way that we can become enlightened, even if we're not perfect, even if we're not exactly who we are or who we want to be. Now, you go to the next one, because I think the next one is important. Now, I didn't just bring my cat along because Harry likes my cat, but also because my cat Bailey is, how many people are dog people or cat people? Who's a dog person? Yeah. Cat people? Any cat people? Yeah. So one of the big differences between cats and dogs, right, is that dogs love everybody, right? Dogs are really super friendly and loyal, yeah, right, absolutely. And cats are kind of standoffish sometimes, right? Cats kind of do their own thing. Bailey's a little funny because Bailey's kind of like a dog. Bailey loves everybody. He's the first cat I've ever had that whenever we have people over, he comes right out and wants to meet you and will rub on you and purr and get pets and so on, which is really strange. Most cats I've had, when people come over, they'll hide, and maybe they'll come out if you're quiet enough, right? We've even had, before COVID, we would have parties, and Bailey would be out with, a dozen people in the house, just waiting to get pets, like a dog. He seems to love everybody. But he's also a cat, right? So even though he's really, really big and fluffy and really lovey, and you can pet him, don't touch his tummy. He will grab onto you and scratch you. I have several scratches on my hands and even my ankle, because every once in a while he will scratch me when I'm just walking by. He's kind of a jerk sometimes, because cats are kind of jerks sometimes. But the way in which Bailey loves everybody, this is going to be kind of a stretch, but I kind of feel like Bailey sort of is kind of like the Buddha or like Shinran, because Bailey's just who he is. He's not perfect, but he's also very, very sweet and compassionate and loving, and he loves everybody. No matter who you are, no matter how busy the house is, people will come over. The reason why Reverend Harry knows Bailey is because Reverend Harry's cat sit for us before. And he and Mika would come over, and the cats just come out and immediately love them. I mean, they're cat people, so maybe it's kind of easy, but but even people who are allergic to cats, Bailey's like, oh, yay, somebody here. So he really loves everybody, and so in some ways, if you go to the next slide, I kind of think that Bailey himself is also kind of like Shinran. This is a silly idea that Reverend Harry gave me, and I asked my daughter to make this picture for me, so she did. So I hope that everybody has a great day today, and thinks a lot about Shinran, and thinks a lot about this kind of Buddhism that we practice that lets us be ourselves, and really embrace everybody. And on the last slide, we can go back to the most important thing, which of course is saying the Nembutsu. So maybe all together we can say the Nembutsu one more time. Namo Amida Butsu.
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 Namo Amida
Namanda.
Butsu.
Namanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. for your wonderful Dharma message and for sharing Bailey with us. When we go cat sitting, instead of babysitting, I call it Bailey sitting. Cat person, dog person, fish person, bird person, right? We got a song, so let's sing the song. Now, if you look at your program, and on this, can you find the Buddha Loves You bunch? The words are at the bottom, but look at the other side. The Buddha Loves You bunch are helping sell Dr. Mitchell's book. They made it to the flyer. They made it to the big times. So what we want to do is sing Buddha Loves You, and you can either look at the words on the page or look at the words on the screen. It's loading. Oh, hold on. Hang on. Speaker. Did I do it right? There. Ready? Fly, fly, little bird. Buddha loves you, little bird. Tweet, 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 tweet. Run, run, little pup. Buddha loves you, little pup. Wow, 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 wow. Don't cry, pussycat. Buddha loves you, pussycat. Mew, 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 mew. Swim, swim, little fish. Buddha loves you, little fish. Yeah, let's give the Buddha Loves You bunch a big hand. It was not easy getting them in the studio and to sing right into the microphone, but somehow it worked. Why don't we conclude our Dharma school portion with Gassho and recite the Nembutsu together. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda. Okay, thank you. This will conclude the Dharma School portion, so kids can go to their classes. You can come up in Oshoko if you haven't had a chance to already, and we'll start the next segment soon. Goodbye. Oh. Could you grab me a program? If there's any left.
That was wonderful.
Okay, we're passing out the books. We're about ready to get started again. Hello, everybody online. How are you? Okay, what we'd like to do next is begin our adult Dharma service. And so we just did Nembutsu chanting with the kids, but let's chant Juseige, which is on page 23 in the small book, or you can read the words off the screen. And if you're online, the words will be on the screen. Namanda, 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 namanda. Gagon chosegan hishimujodo shigan fumanzok seifu joshogak gaomunyoko fuidai seshu fusai shobingu seifu joshogak gashi jobutsudo myosho chojippo kukyomi shomon seifu joshogak ryokujin shonen joe shubongyo shigumu jodo isho tenin shi jinniki endai ko fushomu saido shoujo sankumyo kosai shuyakunan kai chiegen meshi konmo an heisoku sho akudo tsudatsu zen shumon koso jomanzok iyoro jippo nichigatsu shujuki tenko onpugen ishukai hozo koseku dokuho jodai shichu seppo shishiku kuyoi saibutsu gusoku shutokuhon ganne shitsujoman tokui sangai o nyobutsu mugechi tsudatsu mifusho gangaku erik toshi saisho son shiganya koka daisen okando kokusho tenni touchin myoke Nama 平等性祭道本菩提心往生安楽南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏 Okay, next we'll recite the three treasures. That's on page 3 in the small purple book, but it'll also be on the screen. The three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life, now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Buddha Dharma, now we hear it. If we do not deliver ourselves in the present life, no hope is there that we shall be freed from suffering and sorrow in the ocean of birth and death. Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in Buddha. May we all together absorb into ourselves the principle of your way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves your supreme will. I take refuge in Dharma. May we all together be submerged in the depth of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in Sangha. May we all together become units in true accord in your life of harmony in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriad ages of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda. Okay, thank you. I'd like to, once again, it says there on the program even, reintroduce our guest speaker. So it's Dr. Scott Mitchell. He is a scholar of Buddhism in the West, Pure Land Buddhism, and Buddhist modernism. And he's currently the Dean of the Institute of Buddhist Studies in Berkeley, California. He's written or co-edited a number of books, journal articles, and essays. With Natalie Cooley, he co-edited Buddhism Beyond Borders, and is currently working on a co-edited Oxford Handbook of American Buddhism with Anne Glegg. He's also a podcaster, because we've done a podcast together for years, the DharmaRealm, although we haven't done many episodes lately, but maybe we should. And he just has a new book coming out, and that's what's on the back of your program, The Making of American Buddhism. And so it says out now, but I don't know if oh yeah, someone have it? So if you order it, they'll send it, they've shipped. I ordered one for church and it hasn't come yet, but, and so if you do decide to order it, on the program, there's a code, right? And so use that code and you'll get 30% off. But without further ado, let's open our ears and open our hearts as we listen to the Dharma from Dr. Scott Mitchell.
Please join me in Gassho. Although there are many important doctrines concerning the Nembutsu, they can be summarized in the preceding way. Some people who read this will surely ridicule it. Nevertheless, both belief and slander will become a cause for each one's birth in the Pure Land. With pledges of friendship in this life, brief as a dream to guide us, we tie the bonds for meeting before enlightenment in the coming life. If I am behind, I will be guided by others. If I go first, I will guide others. Becoming true friends through many lives, we bring each other to the practice of the Buddha way, and as true teachers in each life, we will together sunder all delusion and attachment. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo. Namo.
Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you to Reverend Harry and to everybody else for making this morning possible. So today, since I talked to the kids about my cat, I thought that I would talk to the grown-ups about the 1982 classic science fiction movie Tron. Harry thinks I might be serious, but I'm not. I'm not actually going to talk about Tron. Harry said that I should take this opportunity to talk about my book, and thanks very much for plugging it, and thanks to anybody who purchases it. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the book, but I also want to talk about why the book matters in the context of the Dharma, and maybe we'll talk about Shinran. I hear it's his birthday. So the first thing I'll do is to give the extended commercial. The book is out now. Somebody sent me a message just yesterday saying they received it. I haven't gotten a copy yet, but I've already read it, so I know how it ends. So if you do order it, please do. It will be shipped to you, I promise. The book, The Making of American Buddhism, is actually a history of the Berkeley Buddhist Temple, and in particular, the history around World War II, mostly in the post-war years. In the 1930s and early 1940s in the Berkeley Temple, they had a Young Buddhist Association, and I'm assuming that y'all have a Young Buddhist Association still. And this community decided to start publishing a magazine called the Berkeley Busse. And before the war, the Berkeley Busse was kind of like a temple newsletter. It had basketball scores from the basketball team and calendars of events that were happening at the temple. But it also had essays written by Nisei, by second-generation Japanese Americans, about their experience as young people in America in the years leading up to World War II. And then, of course, as we all know, during World War II, Japanese Americans were incarcerated on the West Coast here. So the temple sort of went into hiatus, and then when the temple was reestablished after the war, the Young Buddhist Association continued its work, and pretty quickly, starting in 1949, they started meeting again and started publishing the Busse once more. And over the course of the 1950s, the Busse became more and more sophisticated. It was less and less like a temple newsletter and more like a Buddhist magazine that had essays and poetry and history about the Dharma and Buddhism. And not only was it written by Nisei Buddhists, by Japanese Americans, many of whom would go on to become rather well known. Taitetsu Uno, for example, was a part of this community in the early 1950s. This was before he went to Japan to study. He wrote essays almost every year for the Busse. Hiroshi Kashiwagi, who was a playwright, he also was very involved in producing the magazine. But they also opened up the temple and opened up this community to other people who were getting interested in Buddhism at the time, such as Alan Watts. Alan Watts actually published an essay in one of the very first issues of the Busse. And I don't know if people know who Alan Watts is. Just a couple of nods. Alan Watts was in the 1950s and the 1960s became a rather famous person in America for talking about mostly Zen Buddhism. And he really helped popularize Zen Buddhism and sort of Eastern spirituality more generally in the sort of wider public. And so he was a part of this group. There was a poet named Gary Snyder who was also around at the time, and even Jack Kerouac published some of his first poetry in the Berkeley Busse before anybody had heard of Jack Kerouac. Now, what made all of this possible, I think, was really the work of the Reverend at the time, Reverend Kanmo Imamura, but even more importantly, his wife, Jane Imamura. And you should all know the name Jane Imamura because we just sang a song that she helped write. And what'd you call it? The bunch? The Buddha Loves You bunch. I love that. And I love that the Buddha Loves You bunch is promoting my book. That's like high praise. So Jane Imamura, she was a songwriter. She was actually a very gifted musician. Apparently she had perfect pitch. She was planning on going to Berkeley to study music and become a musician, a professional musician, but then the war happened and her family was incarcerated, and so those plans changed. But for anybody who knows anything about the Berkeley Temple, over the course of the 1950s, they really developed their music program. They had a really robust choir, and really late into her life, Jane was really responsible for bringing in these really amazing, talented musicians. And so I think that the sort of magic, so to speak, of Kanmo and Jane Imamura creating this community that really brought people in is something really special. And so the book is really about this particular period in time. And what I try to say is that without all of the work that these folks did, nothing would have happened afterwards, right? All of the popularization of Buddhism that we see today in America wouldn't have happened if we didn't have places where we could come together and study the Dharma. And what we often overlook is the labor, the work that it takes. So, this morning I got here a little after 9, and Reverend Harry was trying to set up all of this, and other members of the community were helping out, right? And there's even people online who are in Sacramento or something, trying to make all of this happen. We don't often see all of that. We don't acknowledge that there's a lot of labor, a lot of work that goes into making all of this happen, to make this building happen. And so I bring all this up because for me, in a lot of ways, this reminds me of a phrase that we use a lot in Buddhism called causes and conditions when we talk about karma. Karma is this concept that we often think of as a sort of cause and effect, right? And it is. Karma is really cause and effect. You do something, and then there's some sort of reaction. You do something good, more good happens. You do something bad, more bad happens. That's a sort of basic understanding of karma, and it's not untrue, but it's also important to remember that other people's karma can affect us as well, right? That my being here isn't just because of choices that I made or actions that I made, but because of choices and actions of other people. And so I never met Reverend Kanmo Imamura, but the work that he did and Jane did to create this community eventually led to the establishment of what was called the BCA Study Center. And the BCA Study Center was first established in 1949, and its first meeting was actually in Jane's mother's living room. That's where they had classes before they had a building or anything else. Over time, the study center became the Institute of Buddhist Studies. And the Institute of Buddhist Studies is not just where I happen to be the dean or where I work, but it's also where I went to graduate school. I got my master's degree at the Institute of Buddhist Studies 20-some odd years ago. That's why I've known him for so long. And in fact, the reason why I know Reverend Harry is because that's where he and I met. The first time Reverend Harry and I met was in the IBS dorm on Haste Street in Berkeley. When I first signed up to take classes, and little known fact, I had no idea what Jodo Shinshu was. I had never heard of Jodo Shinshu before I came to the Institute of Buddhist Studies. And so in addition to learning about Buddhism and getting my graduate degree, this is also the first opportunity I had to really be exposed to the Dharma. And I have a lot of really good memories of being in the dorm and hanging out with Reverend Harry before he was a reverend, and we would talk about music and Tron and other science fiction stuff, but we'd also talk about Buddhism because that's what we were doing. We were studying Buddhism. And so having that opportunity to meet and interact with a community, with the Sangha, was really transformative for me. And I know that I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that experience that I had. And I wouldn't have been able to have that experience if it hadn't been for Reverend Kanmo and Jane Imamura. If they hadn't done what they did to create this community, my whole life would be different. I might, I applied to other graduate schools. I might still be a Buddhist scholar, but I would have gone somewhere else and I would have had a completely different trajectory in my life, right? And so this is where I think karma causes and conditions are really important. This is why I think studying history and knowing where we came from is really important, to sort of think about our lineages and our connections to other people and other places, even people that were around long before we were born. Because without that kind of work, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing today, and I find that deeply grateful. So this idea of being connected to a larger community is also, makes me think of this other concept in Buddhism that I don't know if we talk about it very much in Jodo Shinshu, but it's lineage. We kind of talk about lineage a little bit in the sense of the 7 Pure Land Masters. Most of us may have heard of the 7 Pure Land Masters, maybe not. Reverend Harry teaches a class on this at the IBS. I'm not going to tell you who the 7 masters are because I always forget all of them. But I know there's Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu. Those are the Indian teachers, and then there's some Chinese teachers, and then eventually Genshin, Honen, and Honen's the last, and then he's the teacher of Shinran. So Shinran talks about these 7 Pure Land Masters as the people who really clarified and explained the Pure Land path that meant so much in Shinran's life. It's a way of sort of thinking about the connections that we have to these important people in the past. And I think that we will often do the same thing now more in the present, right? Where we'll talk about certain people that maybe influenced us. So in addition to learning about Buddhism from Reverend Harry before he was Reverend Harry, I also studied with Reverend Dr. David Matsumoto and Eisho Nasu and the Reverend Kusada. Reverend Kusada was the head of the Institute of Buddhist Studies for a long time, but also the resident minister at the Berkeley Temple. Reverend Kusada, for those who've never heard of him before, most people who knew him would describe him as a living bodhisattva. There was an energy about him that was profound, that it's hard to describe. And I'm deeply grateful that I had the opportunity to meet him, even if I only met him very briefly. And most of what we did was we translated Japanese texts. I learned some Japanese from him. But even that was a wonderful experience, because it was me and one other student and Reverend Kusada, and we had this Shin text, and we would read one line every day. And he would go into these long explanations of what each individual word meant, and of course each explanation in and of itself was like a Dharma talk. So I was able to just absorb all of this wisdom from this great teacher. So I'm mentioning all of this because we can think of lineage in this sort of abstract way, like the 7 Pure Land Masters, but I think we should also think about it in terms of sort of more abstract way of thinking about the Sangha and the people in our lives who have really helped us become who we are and helped us understand the Dharma. And that's one of the reasons why I like this quote that I read when we did Gasho. This is actually from The Essentials of Faith Alone by Seikaku, who was a fellow student of Honen's along with Shinran. And part of it that I really like is this line where he says, "If I am behind, I will be guided by others, and if I go first, I will guide others." This sentiment to me feels like, I think it speaks to me because it's about teaching, and that's part of what I do is teach, right? If I go first on the path toward enlightenment, I'm going to guide others, so I'm going to be a teacher for other people. But he also says, if others go first, they will guide me, right? So it's this awareness of an interconnection that we have with other people. But more lately, I've been thinking about the next part, which he says, becoming true friends through many lives, we bring each other to the practice of the Buddha way. And I think, I could be wrong about this, because I haven't done the research, but I'm pretty sure that when he says true friends, what he's talking about is true Dharma friends. And this is a concept in Buddhism called, in Sanskrit, Kalyana Mitra. A Kalyana Mitra is a good Dharma friend. The Buddha himself talks about having good friends in your life who support you, not just in a general sense, but in the specific case of helping you along the path toward enlightenment. And I think that I think we can probably all imagine who our good Dharma friends are. One of the reasons why I always love coming to Oakland, and one of the reasons why if he ever asks me, I will come and give a talk, is because I truly believe that Reverend Harry is one of my good Dharma friends. That over the years, he's taught me in many different ways, both intentionally, but also more often, not intentionally. Just by his presence, helping me sort of understand more about Jodo Shinshu and how to become more of myself. So this is one of the reasons why I always enjoy coming to Oakland. It's one of the reasons why I like bringing my cat and why I let him watch my cat because he's a good Dharma friend. And I think that when we think about our own lives, we can think about the people who have really influenced us in these ways. And one of the things that I like to do is to sort of think about and imagine history, because through causes and conditions, oftentimes that have nothing to do with me or my choices, we end up where we are in the present. And that's certainly true for the people that I write about in this book, some of whom are still here, some of them are still with us, but many of whom did all of this labor and work to really make Buddhism possible. And if they hadn't done that, then we wouldn't be here today. And I feel very, very grateful for that. And finally, that's really the key of the Jodo Shinshu path, in my feeling, is that once you are aware of just how fortunate and lucky we are to be where we are, the appropriate response is one of gratitude. And that's where the Nembutsu comes from, at this place of gratitude, knowing that there is a path to enlightenment that embraces all of us just as we are. So on that note, I think I will once again ask us to please join me in Gassho. Although there are many important doctrines concerning the Nembutsu, they can be summarized in the preceding way. Some people who read this will surely ridicule it. Nevertheless, both belief and slander will become a cause for each one's birth in the Pure Land. With pledges of friendship in this life, brief as a dream to guide us, we tie the bonds for meeting before enlightenment in the coming life. If I am behind, I will be guided by others. If I go first, I will guide others. Becoming true friends through many lives, we bring each other to the practice of the Buddha way, and as true teachers in each life, we will together sunder all delusion and attachment. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, namanda, namanda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me switch the thing here. Thank you very much, Dr. Mitchell. Really wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. This is a really exciting time because I haven't had a chance to read the book, even though he did send me a PDF. But I think it's going to be really, really interesting and amazing work, and I'm looking forward to reading it and, just recognizing and appreciating the role that Jodo Shinshu had in the formation of American Buddhism is something that kind of hasn't happened yet, but I think it'll be more and more with this release. Before I switch it over, just to let you know, I think we have a link. If you go to the website, there's a link to the book, but also he's going to be doing, I'm part of it, I'm the MC, a book launch this Wednesday. And so we'll put that link up and maybe send it out to the Sangha. And so the kind of official book launch with IBS will be happening this Wednesday. And then you're going to be speaking in Berkeley. When's that? June 18th. Ooh, the day after our bazaar. And so keep an eye out for those announcements. Next, more announcements. And today we have our president, Keiju Terada, to deliver those announcements.
Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to give a short list of announcements here. I'm sorry I don't have anything to present on the screen here, but if you in the Berkeley area or would like to attend the Berkeley Buddhist Temple Satsuki Bazaar. So if you're in the area or if you'd like to go out to Berkeley, please enjoy. They have not only wonderful food but entertainment. So feel free to join them, and it's from 12 noon till 7 p.m. Regarding the Memorial Day weekend, we do not have the family service on Sunday, but for the Memorial Day weekend, we have cemetery visitation. So please check the Bushin or just the Bushin, right, Sensei? Our newsletter for the schedule. And at, I believe at 4 o'clock, we do have memorial service here on Sunday. So the visitations and the service will be on Sunday. And lastly, please note that the June Shotsuki day has been moved to June 11, and that's at the usual time of 10 o'clock. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Don't go too far, Keiju,
right
because next we'd like to ask our president, Keiju Terada, to offer the words of appreciation.
I'm back again. First of all, I'd like to thank Reverend Bridge again for officiating today's service, and Dr. Scott Mitchell for his wonderful Dharma talk. And thanks go to the month of May's Hoan group led by Linda Minamoto. So thank you very much. And thank you for attending today's service.
Okay, thank you. This will conclude our service. I have to run, well, I'll be around for a little bit. I think we can just kind of hang out downstairs and maybe you can talk to Dr. Mitchell a little bit, talk to me. I'm going to be guest speaking today in Sebastopol at the Enmanji Temple, so I got to hit the road, but we're finished on time, so I think we'll be fine. We can hang out a little bit. Thank you everyone online. Nice to see you as always. And why don't we conclude our service with Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda. Okay, thank you.